Hey guys, so my competitive tier list video where I rank the decks based on available Dueling Book data from ygeoscope.com has been quite popular, so I decided to do another iteration where I focus only on the rogue decks so we can cover more options. So I'm not going to go in detail on how the formula works to categorize the decks since that's already been covered in depth in my previous videos, so I'll link those below for you to check out if you're interested. Just know that the formula considers how often the particular deck is played among the other 20 most played rogue decks in the last 7 days, their win percentages, and whether they were played by the top 25 ranked players on Dueling Book, which is based on my monthly meta-analysis videos, another topic that you can check out. Now in the overall tier list that I posted a couple of weeks ago, this was the breakdown, so for this video we are basically excluding any decks that you see here on tier 1 or 2. Now Dogmatic Invoked and Drytron are probably considered tier 2, but from a data perspective, it was categorized as rogue, so we still will include them for this current video. Now ygeoscope does have some limitations in how they identify decks, so I could not include these 3 decks in particular for different reasons. For Evil Twin, unfortunately ygeoscope does not seem to be able to identify this deck at the moment, so it is not available in the data. As for heroes, the problem with this is that just so many different decks run the DPE engine, and ygeoscope mistakenly categorizes those decks as just hero in a lot of instances, so the data for actual pure heroes is tainted and I cannot trust it. Now this sucks because if you check my rogue analysis of the top ranked players that I posted recently, Evil Twin and pure heroes were actually some of the most played rogue options among the top players. I was able to sift that out because I manually checked those replays, whereas for the tier list score calculation I cannot do that. Lastly, I also can't include pure Burning Abyss because ygeoscope also mistakenly categorizes any Phantom Knight deck as just Burning Abyss, rather than the control trap heavy Burning Abyss that we would actually be interested as a rogue option. So sadly, these 3 decks will not be part of this tier list video due to the data limitations. As for the rogue tier categorization, this is going to follow the exact same cutoffs as my meta tier list videos, where essentially the scores in the 80th percentile and above being in the top category and so on. I didn't have any formal rogue tier list category names in mind, so I just listed as A, B, C, and D, but if you have any creative name suggestions, feel free to write that out in the comments. So without further ado, let's get right into listing all the top 20 rogue decks based on Dueling Book data. The first is Dogmatic Invoked, which again, I get it, many of you may consider this as tier 2, but to align with my competitive tier list video where this was identified as rogue, I still considered it for this video. Anyways, Dogmatic Invoked is quite consistent, but at the moment not doing great because it has a bad Fluwandereeze matchup, and one of its main win conditions, Winda, is either outed easily by the Brave engine or just does not matter at all against something like Flu. Next is Drytron, another deck you may argue is tier 2, but hey, at least the formula is showing these 2 decks as the top rogue options, so something seems to be going right. Despite the EVA ban, it can still be pretty good going first, at least as long as Scythe and DPE are still legal. The win percentage of 60% among all players in the last 7 days is really impressive as well. Then we have Dinos, a solid rogue option now, although it can have more bricking issues due to the limit of misc. They are generally all using the small scrap engine now, and at least the small world helps the deck more out as well. The 49 win percentage was rather low though. Next we have Ad Ignister, which is a rogue option that seems to be popular among the top 25 ranked players, and its 62% win percentage among all players is really good. A great combo option that does a whole lot of summoning, and some decks honestly just cannot out that Arrival Ad Ignister. Now we move on to what I'm calling B tier rogue, which has Salamangreat leading this section. Been a popular rogue option for a long time after it fell from its tier 1 status, and for the most part it is budget friendly, so it's a good entry deck for new players. Maybe they will get circled back to 3 on the next list as well. And then we have Plunder Patrol, which recently had its card prices go up because it did well at some regional events I believe. Someone correct me on that otherwise. Really interesting concept of a deck as they look to equip themselves to their extra deck monsters that are pirate ships, and the Brave engine goes well with the deck too, although that means that it's not cheap to play this deck optimally. Next we have ABC, which due to pure 555 will almost always see some representation among the top 25 ranked players on Dueling Book. I think it's another deck that can benefit from the Brave engine, and ABC Dragon Buster is always pretty good and fun to play. Then we have Earth Machine, which is not as popular as it once was, maybe over a year ago or so. Not sure what the best variant is, but I do tend to see some trap heavy builds, and the 3x skill drain can work with this deck. We then have Altergeist, which has been a solid rogue option for a really long time as well. Trap heavy playstyle and can run Secret Village since they're all spellcasters, and is just really reliable as long as Multifaker is around. Next we have Muromail, which is a combo deck that looks to rip cards out of your hand, so hand loops are never fun to play against. They do search quite a lot, so Droll can be effective against them if you can manage to resolve it at least. And on Dueling Book, ES Crow is one user that's best known for this deck. On to the C tier, we have Madolche leading this section. I find I'm not going up against this deck much anymore, but it can deal a ton of damage in a hurry, and they have some good spells and traps to maintain their grind game as well. Definitely don't sleep on them. Next is my beloved Cyber Dragons, which finally seems to have made it onto my data videos, although that 37 win percentage is absolutely miserable, guys. We need to bring those rookie numbers up. A deck that can OTK really easily but still have a respectable grind game. It's certainly a fun rogue option to pick up. Now on the opposite scale of fun, we have Mystic Mind Burn that looks to lock you out from doing anything. Perhaps the only positive thing from the Brave Engine is that it serves as an easy Mystic Mind out by bouncing it back with Draco back, so maybe there's not as many Mystic Mind Burn decks anymore, who knows. Then we have another OTK deck in Numeron. Since the release of their field spell over a year ago, this deck can put up bodies fast and deal a ton of damage. At least Numeron Zexal is banned now. That card was just ridiculous. Next we have Infernoble Knight, another hand loop deck that was tier 1 when Smoke Grenade was legal, and would basically rip anywhere between 2 to 4 cards and not let you play. It's always a good rogue option though, as long as you know how to pilot it well. Then we have Fluffle, which is a fusion based strategy with some cute but also scary looking monsters. I know they are mixed with Sky Striker engine at times, although I'm not sure how common that is. It's a deck that can also do a ton of damage too, so watch out for them. Next we have True Draco, which I did not think I would see at the same scale as these other rogue options listed. It's an anti-meta strategy where the monsters contribute over continuous spells or traps, and the True Draco spells and traps will also trigger to pop when they're sent to grave. The deck is mixed with Floodgates to prevent you from playing, and it's not fun to play against. And then we have Orcus, another fan favorite deck that lost its competitive status after Harp Horror was banned, but still played quite a lot and can be mixed with different decks. Maybe Harp will come back on the next list and the deck can be more playable again. Lastly, we have a couple of decks for the D tier, and we have Blue Eyes to start out. I guess because it is a fan favorite deck, it's played enough times to actually make it onto this list, but its 28% win percentage is absolutely miserable and quite possibly the worst I've ever seen. Not a deck I would recommend for competitive play, but it sure does have a big following. Lastly, we have Pendulum Magicians on here, and I'm very surprised at how low this was. Its 32% win percentage is also quite terrible, and not sure which Pendulum variant it actually is. I think we need Trift to play this deck more online and beef up these numbers. Alright guys, so that was it for the Rogue tier list by the data. Hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, I can continue to bring these as well roughly every month or so alongside my overall competitive tier list videos. Take care guys.